Looks like we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the King's Council podcast. I'm your host, Triarch, or you can call me Tri. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone, including our regular Scurvy Rum and Okairo, who I'm here with, and a new guest. How would you like to be referred to as?
Uh, I go by on Twitter as the Prophet of Doom, but that's a bit long, so we're just gonna use my old nickname, my boy.
My
It
boy.
will do. My boy.
Dinner.
All right, well, welcome onto the show, my boy. Now, I know I said last week we were going to cover authoritarianism versus totalitarianism, but unfortunately, both Keza and white supremacy couldn't make it today, and I wanted both of them on for that topic. So instead, we have our guest, my boy, on here to talk about his book. And, well, I guess before we talk about that, should I maybe describe how you got to be on here?
Please.
Okay, so this actually started with me writing out a response to a poll I saw. It was it wasn't all that complicated. It's just someone I follow and made a poll saying, which did you think was what do you think is the biggest threat to America, or something like that. It was a few weeks ago. And one of the options, he put the Israeli flag next to the queer pride flag, and on the next one he put the Palestinian flag to some other Islamic flag. I don't remember what it was. Anywho, I wrote out a response that for whatever reason Twitter wouldn't let me send on X. So I just made a post my own where I described basically that I think America, as much as it's touted as the Rome of today, I personally view it more as modern day Babylon, which that reached Okairo's timeline, which led to him recommending to me your book, my boy, which I'm not even a percentage through yet, but it looks very extensive. So for those of us who maybe haven't read yet and are looking to do so, we're going to be spending today kind of going over what you write about in that.
Ooh. Tall order. So yeah, it's over a 600-page book. Not very airy either. It's quite thick. Describing it, well, first off, there's a bunch of quote-unquote spoilers. I'll give you the rundown without them, but might leave some holes. So essentially, this book was written, I started writing it as just what was originally a bunch of admittedly very long Twitter threads, which are now completely outdated. But I wrote that as just a bunch of Twitter threads back in the 2024 election campaign. So I was reading Twitter daily, more or less, and the Trump fandom was essentially acting as if reality was a thing that belonged in another dimension, and that Trump was somehow going to come down from the heavens and spread his wings and save America from all its troubles. And I was looking at this, and I was thinking, do they have any idea how old and how resilient the problems of the US are? And the answer was clearly no. And let's just say that out of what was originally some minor frustration that grew because it kept happening every day, I kind of threw out I'd like to write a true history of the United States, which was essentially at the time more like I don't want to say tongue-in-cheek, but at the very least it was going to be a history of the US, not from and then this president said this, and then this war happened, but more of the actual causes and the actual consequences of most of the actions that drove US policy and the evolution of the US over time, all the way to Trump's situation. So essentially, take everything from 1640 all the way to 2025 and try to make sense of the whole. This was not something I was really going to do. I just kind of, like the first pages, I just kind of threw a bunch of random stuff. Like I must have done like 200 years of history in like 15 tweets. So you can imagine the level of seriousness at the start. But it grew and it grew and it kept growing until I eventually started discovering a certain amount of things in US history that I was not like, I was aware of them, but as I'm sure you know, there are things that you know nominally, and there are the things that you realize when you really think about it, like the gotcha moment. I started getting a gotcha moment when I realized that the United States has had systemic failures to its political system twice already. The first one being the Civil War back in the 1860s, and the second one being the events after World War II, which I'm not going to detail right now. And I realized that if you kind of squint your eyes a bit on the dates, the creation of the United States as an independent country dates back to the 1780s. There's the Civil War in the 1860s, and then another event in the 1940s. That's 80 years every time. And if you jump 80 years from now, it's, well, basically 2027. So I was just pilfering through US history, trying to piece together things. And the more I looked, the more I started seeing patterns that I felt were essentially, first off, clear, as in there was clearly a trend of historical evolution that I could make out. And there was just the fact that overall, it was becoming a really big thing. So I'm not going to tell all the oddities of its creation, but when I was done with writing it and throwing it on Twitter, it was something like, I don't know, let's say 400, 300 pages. It ended up being almost 600 because I rewrote, corrected, updated a tremendous amount of things. And as for what the book is, I'd say there's 3 sections that you can basically break it down as. The first section is just a very short-ish historical recap of everything from the 1640s to the 20th century. This is where it's really going over events in a very shallow way. It's not trying to teach you about the details of US history. It's trying to describe the greater patterns of how things happen. So what was the root cause for most of the settlers leaving Britain and the surrounding isles and coming to America in the early days, which again is done in a very shallow way? What were the main causes for the partition between the British and what will eventually become the American people? Later down the line, what was the evolution of the US all the way to the Civil War and why the Civil War happened? Spoilers, it's not about slavery. And then the last chapter of the 3 introduction chapters is essentially the Gilded Age, which is how in, say, the 1860, I think in 1870, the United States population is around 32 million. I haven't watched that number in a while, so just going by memory, it's about 30 million and some. And in 1910, it's 90 something, 93 million. Population has tripled in just 40 years. And of course, this is the Gilded Age. It's not known for the population boom. It's known for the industry boom. These 3 are sort of the introduction of why America was born, why the original design of America as a weak federal state with very empowered individual states that were given great amounts of freedom in their governance eventually broke down into a civil war, and how after the Civil War ends, the US kind of goes into one of the most monstrous economic booms in all of human history, perhaps more so than any nation in the world. Like the latter 19th century is unquestionably the time of industrial expansion, but the US essentially had everything it could possibly hope for to succeed, and it did way more than anyone could have imagined. That's the first part of the book, and thankfully the other 2 will be fairly simple to explain, at least without telling the details. From essentially the accession to power of Theodore Roosevelt as to the presidency in 1901, all the way to the end of World War II. There is an unmitigated trend of empowerment of the federal government and of the federal state, as in federal government being just the amounts of rights and effective power that they have in the everyday life of Americans and foreigners, but also federal state just in the sense of the mass of functionaries, of public servants, the size of the FBI, which is non-existent at its inception as the BOI. It's like 20 agents. It's ridiculous. By 1945, you will have something like, again, going from memory, something like 4,500 agents, plus all the extra people working, doing everything else necessary for the FBI, probably growing it to at least 20,000 people. That kind of growth was not done in what you might call a healthy way. There are ideological reasons for this, because the US is a republic, and the US had a hard time, let's say, establishing a certain level of authority upon its own agencies, its own state tools, let's say. And because it lacked lacking is perhaps not the word, because the Republican culture in the US was vastly different from the more monarchical culture that existed in Europe, there's been a trend of agencies, powers, arms of the state growing both very powerful and very independent. I describe this evolution and its effects all the way to what is its natural conclusion eventually. That's the entire second part of the book, which is the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963. That is basically half the book, so the introduction plus the creation of what we now call the deep state represents about half the book, or almost that. By 1960, well, a little more than that actually, by the early 1970s, I essentially end the book as a political history book because I consider that there's very little worthwhile to say. The general trends of what runs the United States federal government, I'm talking worldview, ideology, general policy, methods to apply this policy. Well, the methods evolve, but they never change. It's just the same thing done harder from basically the 1940s and 50s. Technically, there's minor important evolutions in the 70s, but fundamentally by, say, 1975, the US is what it is, and it will never stop being that all the way to now. So the deep state grows, takes effective power at the head of the US, and never changes its policies thereafter. So I stop completely talking about politics because everything has been said, everything worthwhile. And the rest of the book, which is admittedly very long and contrived, I'm doing what I can, is explain both how the US changed not in its policies, because the policies have never changed, but changed economically, changed socially, changed essentially out of what was once what you could once call a purely American shell. The US turns more ideologized. It becomes more obsessed with a certain idea of what it should be. I'm not talking just about how the American people see it, how the American elites, how the American state, how the American people. I try to cover as much as I can of it, trying to show how eventually the policy of, broadly speaking, supreme power that was there naturally in 1945, that became more difficult to sustain by the 1970s. Since that policy never changed, I describe the effects of keeping that policy and all the tools, particularly the dollar as a weapon, the dollar as the fiat world reserve currency, as it is christened in 1971 when Richard Nixon quit the gold standard. That is a weapon that has both empowered the United States as a very, very powerful empire, and it has also deeply damaged it internally. And this is an important, I think, nuance that I try to bring about that time, is that from the 1970s onwards, in my eyes, there is an American nation and there is an American empire. And increasingly over time, the American nation will be sacrificed in favor of the American empire. And the rest of the West, which broadly speaking is what you could call the 1953 empire, so South Korea, Japan, Western Europe as it was conquered by 1945, all those nations will be going down economically, will be destroyed politically, ethnically, and essentially in every single way possible in the name, and that includes America, the American nation itself, in the name of keeping the American empire up and as strong as it needs to be to stay in a totally dominant position. And essentially, the latter half of the book is explaining what the American empire stands on, and then it's mostly just describing what you can only call really the endless decay that we've been going through in enforcing this policy of supreme power since the 70s. And that's that all the way to today, where essentially, not going to spoil anything, but at the end of the book, I've made a very, very long, we're talking like 300 pages long list of all the problems that the United States has. And then I come back to the 2024 elections. I'm like, if you think Trump can fix that, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And it's not going to go down well.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting for me to read because Alcaro did give me a copy, and I do plan to, whenever I have time, to go through that in full. I do have a question that I understand perhaps lack nuance, so maybe you can shed some light on this. Would it be perhaps more accurate to call it the Israeli Empire?
No, I don't think so
Ah,
at all. I think there is. I think if you want to go about the Jewish question, I think the Jewish question is best answered with this description of it. The United States has effectively become a sort of Byzantine empire, and the Jews have effectively become Venice. And I'm sure not everyone will understand what that means, so let me explain. Back after it had started weakening, after the Arabs destroyed most of its power, the Byzantine Empire started being overly generous to the Venetian merchants that were their best door into the Western Christian world. Because at the time, if you look at the map of Europe, the Byzantines are essentially facing a massive Arab empire, essentially by themselves, and contacts with Europe, economical contacts, trade, is very important to make sure that they get allies both politically, but also get money from them. And the situation that happened is that the Venetians were extremely too generous. That generosity eventually made the Venetians far too powerful within the Byzantine court. I'm talking the Venetian merchants removed the power of the Byzantine merchants because the Byzantine merchants had to pay taxes, the Venetians didn't. The Venetian merchants eventually started essentially dictating the Byzantine economy, despite the fact that they were not that strong in it. When you look at the construct of the United States, there is an obvious open door to lobbying. There's an obvious open door to lobbying, and Jews are unfortunately extremely aggressive and extremely persistent with this kind of lobbying. I don't think I want to go into like very long-winded details, but broadly speaking, they're very good at harassing people to do what they want them to do. I think everybody's noticed that at some point. The position of Israel within the American political system, basically the fact that they can dictate to the media, that they can dictate to politicians, that they can push things around, is absolutely ridiculous and completely beyond any kind of sense. Like, there is no way you can watch Miriam Adelson proudly claim in front of Trump that she gave $250 million for his campaigns, and him saying, "Oh, well, it's so important that the Jewish lobby go back to the level of respect and importance that they had 10 years ago." No, you can't really do that. But the notion that somehow this insanely heavy Jewish influence in America is somehow behind the general control of the economic interest, the political interest, the political goals of the United States. No, there is no direct correlation. I've looked up and down and everywhere. Almost every decision, whether military, political, or anything of the sort, of the United States serves what is broadly called the deep state. Are the Jews part of the deep state? Yes. Are they domineering it? Not even close. There's a lot of ways in which they could have made the US do things that would have been good for them. And either they didn't have the power, either they did it themselves without US help. I mean, Israel did. So framing it as the Israeli empire, I don't think that's true.
Basically, it comes down to secret combinations. And I
Is that
realize,
right?
sure. So there's a concept in my theology, my boy, if you're not sure, I'm what you would call a Latter-day Saint or a Mormon. And
Okay.
something we talk about in reference to what we read from the Book of Mormon is a concept called secret combinations. And it's the idea that you have all these different interest groups from all sorts of backgrounds wielding all sorts of different kinds of power, all in alliance with each other in their own self-interest at the expense of everyone who they view as their enemies.
Yes, that is exactly it. That's a perfect description.
Yeah, so we have the Israeli lobby, but we also have our own elites, and as well as any other foreign elites who are in bed with ours to try to lobby for their interests as well. And I don't just mean lobbying, I'm talking about other vectors of control, such as bribery and blackmail
Media.
and so forth.
Indeed.
All right. Well, should we maybe perhaps go through some examples of where this is prevalent, particularly in regards to the utter,
Recent news.
yeah, up to yesterday, funny enough. Absolutely. Which I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that most of the people who have or will watch this podcast are at least somewhat familiar with, well, actually, Scurvy or Cairo, either one of you guys want to take this away? I'd imagine
With
either of you are more familiar with everything that's been happening recently than I am.
yes, with Venezuela.
Oh yes, that. Absolutely.
All right. Where would you want me to start in regards to that? Just because there's a lot to go over because it's
Well,
geopolitics.
sure. I think let's just go around and get everyone's personal opinions on the matter just briefly, and then we can go into the specifics from there.
Alrighty.
Cairo, would you like to start us off?
I mean, my opinion on the whole thing is that this is going to cause a lot more problems than it will ever solve, and the people cheering right now are going to regret it.
All right,
If-
Scurvy, how about you?
So if you ask me, like, I honestly view this as like at least in my opinion, baby's first lesson in geopolitics. Multiple things can be true at the same time. I think my thoughts on it have been. I'm actually just going to read a post that I wrote in regards to the whole thing because I think it's pretty succinct. The biggest takeaway from what's going on in Venezuela: many things can be true at the same time. Maduro deserved to get the boot ages ago, and the people of Venezuela have every right to celebrate. His replacement is a massive Israel shill and Zionist. And when it comes to interim governors, I remembered this tidbit. It's probably not gonna be a great time for the Venezuelan people. The complaints from American citizens are valid as there are historical similarities. Iraq, Syria. I list those two just to name some examples that had dire consequences. Mexico and Colombia are next if Trump wants to take this, as in dealing with drug trafficking all the way. China and Russia do/will care about what happened yesterday, but they will feel the effects in time. It was also about oil and trying to reclaim some value on the U.S. petrodollar. Those are just the SparkNotes version of everything that's happening, and there's more left out, albeit not on purpose. Geopolitics requires one to not think in binaries.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
many people are failing. And by many people, I mean a lot of a lot of VTubers are failing that tremendously.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not just VTubers. And no, I did see the post you made, Scurvy, and as someone who has been pretty open about my general lack of literacy, I actually appreciated your take, because that was more or less the impression I got. Because none of us here are communists, and I don't imagine anyone in our audience is pro-communism either. But we're not fans exactly of the chosen people either. So this is very
That
much
we are not.
yeah. So this is very much a matter of gosh, what's the saying? You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's very yeah, that's the impression I get from all this. And before you get more of my boy's take on this, I want to read something out from the chat from Archaeosophy here. I never believed they were the source of our problem, merely accelerants of our problems. And I agree. And I suppose when I asked that, I didn't really mean it so much as something I was convinced of, but as something that could be inferred by someone who was listening. Because I do imagine if I had heard any of this before last year, it's the 2026 now, so the year before, that's the kind of line of thinking I would have found myself in. Oh, like, are we sure that it's not actually, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Israel either. It could be any other nation with a significant amount of influence amongst our elites. Would it be more accurate to call it this empire or that empire as opposed to our own? But as my boy correctly pointed out, that's not considering the many factors within our own government themselves, amongst our own elites.
Yeah,
Unless there was something I
Oh.
missed in that.
Sorry.
Oh, not at all.
I
Hey,
don't think you.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
I will. I will take it for a second. So, the reason as to why Venezuela was attacked, if you can even call that an attack at this point, because it's basically a circus. They sell their oil to China in yuan, which is problematic because the United States requires to sustain itself that oil be sold in dollars, and that's been same reason as to why you attacked Iraq in 2002. Same reason as to why many other smaller conflicts have been made. Simply put, this is another basic enforcement of the petrodollar. This is, however, let's just say it's kind of a special case. It's kind of a special breed in stupidity. First off, there was no battle. I don't care how bad the Venezuelan army may be. I have seen footage of helicopters essentially standing like stationary in midair right on top of Caracas, of the capital, just launching rockets and nothing fired at them. Even a child with a rock could have hit that. Okay, the fact that not a single stinger was fired is not like the Venezuelan army being just this bad. It's that they were paid off. There's general, and to my understanding, Maduro is just a continuation of Chavez. Chavez took power something like 1998. There was very little actual support for his regime, for his government. Essentially, he was dropped, or he accepted a deal where he gave himself up because it was either you give yourself up, either we will invade for real. I don't know. But very clearly, people had been paid off, or people had been convinced not to fight back. the kidnapping, can only call it that really, of a head of states is, as Okairo put it, it's really dumb. Like, doing that can only open a can of worms you don't want to open. But ironically, I think the whole affair, outside of the stupidity of kidnapping people like that, I think it's a nothing burger. I think it's nothing because it's essentially trying to force the Venezuelans to sell their oil back in dollars. Yes, but right now we're already past that. The biggest problem is no longer enforcing the petrodollar on Venezuela. It's enforcing it on China. It's enforcing it on Russia. It's enforcing it on
Everyone.
Saudi Arabia themselves have said that they would start dropping it. Basically, this is like showing off that you've got the strength to, still put people down. Like, you're still the boss, but you're attacking the weakest member of the gang. And even then, it's not really an attack. It's basically paying them off so they'll give them up without a fight. It can only end up as different levels of, well, that was pointless, or that was very bad. And just so you know, almost every single time that the CIA has broken up a country, they've used the occasion to bring in some of your new refugees. So, yeah, you might want to expect some new Venezuelan neighbors soon enough, or maybe I will. Who knows where they will send them, but yeah.
They better be the white ones.
I know you want that, but there's not many of them,
You know that it won't be
Yeah.
that movie.
Oh, nut.
Well, for one thing, Scurvy, they tend to make up the governing class in most of these South American countries. More often
Ah,
than
yeah,
not.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Which I don't think I need to explain to anyone, puts them up near the top of the social totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's, I'm sure everyone's noticed this as well, but a lot of the quote-unquote immigrants, most of them are invaders, let's be honest about that.
Yes.
They tend to come from the... why do I not have my words today? They tend to come from the bottom of their social totem poles in their respective nations. So a lot of them are former criminals. I say former, but I mean, we need only look at the increase in crime rates in the West to know that former is not applicable.
No,
But
that's
the point
doctors.
is, oh yeah, no, of course they're doctors, they're engineers, they're dreamers. All of it.
That
But anyhow, the point is, the kind of people that we get flooded into our nations are what we'd best call the undesirables to their ruling classes. And I make that claim because notice how not eager any of these countries are to take their own people back.
Plus, there's the remittances and other economic incentives. Basically, it's literally a way to poison the target country and then to make the sender country dependent.
While also alleviating the total cost it would take to maintain a respective nation due to the decrease in population.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the name of the game, and I don't know how they're going to play out. I mean, this is the first time I've seen somebody just fake a battle, smash a few bases with very few people or almost no one with rockets, kidnap the president, and then walk home and be proud about it. Like, kidnapping presidents, it's not the first time, but they didn't make a show out of it. I don't even know what to say. Like, this is a fake battle. This is a fake invasion. They could have picked up Maduro at the airport after his guards would have given him up and brought him into the US, and that would have been that. The rest is just for show. I don't even know what to say anymore.
All I know is this sets a bad precedent because what stops other countries from doing this to the rulers of other nations?
Yeah.
Honestly, I do find this whole thing to be just fascinating, and also I also find the people that are just fighting about this and just not understanding what's actually going on to be both very blackpilling but also very funny. And it just confirms it just confirms that the masses are just unfit to be engaging in any sort of like political matters.
Mhm.
It's no longer just politics, but I've escalated it to the thing of just like any sort of anything political.
Not just the masses either, as I'm sure you guys have been keenly aware of a lot of the political influences on the right, of which I've noticed a sizable split on the matter.
Yes,
Yep.
half are pissed off because they realize what this means, and the other half are sitting there cheering with the rest of them.
Yep.
It's funny.
Which
This is where you see the difference in interpretation of what MAGA means.
Yeah. Oh, that is something interesting you mentioned there, right there. It's like how many times are people going like, yeah, MAGA, MAGA, and they're just cheering on a foreign invasion, but it's like, what does this have to do with making America great again?
Everything that makes the American empire great, not the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
We're not
so
going to get anything out of this.
Israel.
Well, as we just went over, Scurvy, it's really just all of our elites, theirs and everyone else's.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I was just being a little facetious there.
But yeah, it's all going down the pot. It's not stopping. Plus, interesting thing that has been mentioned. There was the visit from the Jew in chief, Netanyahu, and right after that was Venezuela. I don't think Netanyahu cares about Venezuela, but I know he cares a lot about Iran. So it might have been just a preliminary thing for show, and we're gonna have the next soon. I wouldn't be surprised.
Not even a week into 2026.
Yeah, they really want the acceleration to come. It's like, hey, I've been an accelerationist for a long time. Please, go ahead. Smash everything.
Well, I'll say this then. If the years 2024 and 2025 are the years of awakening, then 2026 and 2027 will be the years of acceleration.
Possibly.
There we go. That's my very broad, generalized prediction for the next few years.
I think it's going to accelerate every year, yes. It's actually quite, how to put this, it's quite impressive how the stars are aligning economically, if I can just throw the subject for a second, because it is going to be what 2026 will be about. So if you'll give me a minute on it, the AI bubble is going to burst because no, Nvidia is not worth 5 trillion. I'm sorry to say. At some point, it will burst this year. Maybe with a miracle or two, it will last until the next, but it will burst, and there will be a lot of crying.
I'll get the cup ready.
The general state of the economy, I don't think I need to comment on it. I'm sure you're all aware it's not doing amazing. And there's still the same problem broadly, which is that Trump's general policy on anybody not buying his stuff is just to scream louder and punching them until they do, which does work on the extremely submissive Europeans, sadly, much as it pisses me off to watch. But it's not going to work on the Chinese. As you may have noticed, he was already pushing back the famous tariffs like 4 times before pushing that a whole year. Spoilers, they will not come back this year. It's not happening. And we're going to see at the same time the general economy not doing well, a bubble bursting, and the Chinese tightening the noose because at this point they are the factory of the world. And if they say, no, that's the price and you can take it or leave it, well, you don't have a choice. There is no other place to get, especially the well, you've seen with the rare earths thing, they're already willing to start saying this one's under a lock. It does not come out unless we get the papers signed. So, tightening pressure from China, tightening economics, bubble bursting. Yeah, this year is going to be painful for a lot of people. And key thing to always remember is that we can talk politics all day long. People don't care. As you said, Scurvy, like, people do not care about political matter. Deep down, they don't care. But everyone likes to have money in their pockets and no one likes to starve. When economics blow up,
Everyone will care.
yep.
Basically.
Okay, or if you want to share what you've written down in the group chat for us.
Well, to build off what my boy was saying, China's whole mindset, due to the two opium wars and how the West has treated it in the past, is we will not be screwed over again. Regardless of their ideology, communism, capitalism, whatever combination they have of the two, that is their whole goal. We will not be a victim of anyone else again. And you can see it with how they've acted. They don't let foreign companies into their, buy land or anything. You have to partner with a Chinese company, and it is Chinese people who will work and everything of that sort. And I've noticed a lot of people don't truly understand that. They just think China evil because insert US, common US propaganda reason.
And for those types, they think the U.S. government isn't evil. And then okay, let me back up a little. Those types are such hypocrites because they'll say, "Oh, the Chinese government is evil," and then they'll for a moment say, "Oh no, our government isn't evil," and then they'll backtrack on that. And then they'll say, "Oh, the U.S. government is evil," and it's just like, pick a fucking lane. Because I see this a lot. I do see this a lot, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Oh, I think we've all noticed. Very few people understand what nuance is anymore.
Madam Savvy sure doesn't.
We don't discuss her. Because when you think about it, the CCP, China's whole government, and the US government both suck. Each for their own reasons.
What I find so funny, to kind of bring it back to the idea of the American nation versus the empire, is how much, and this is something that's been apparent to me ever since I'd hear relatives and parents talking about politics since I was a child, is how much we hate our government and seem to have always had.
But won't
And
do
yet
anything.
well, not just that we won't do anything. Never mind that we can't, keeping in mind elite theory here. We insist that the structure in which enabled it is still good. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have heard the arguments, oh, it's not democracy that's bad, or no, it's not the republic that's bad, it's just the government.
Yeah, but what runs the government? The people who run it.
It's almost impossible for people to ever criticize the system they grow up in, Like, it's very, very, very hard. It's universal.
They think that the government is like this. They think like the government is like this abstract entity, but no, it's made up of people. It's not like the government is not God. The government is not God. Yet these people worship the government as if it is God.
I mean, it's like the Constitution. Everyone thinks it can do anything, but it can't. It's a piece of paper. What enforces it? People.
Sure, my boy, you go over that in your book.
Over the Constitution, briefly, yeah. But generally speaking, yes, there is this kind of notion in modern times. It's actually, like, this is completely out of left field, but I find it interesting because I was thinking about it earlier, because I was reading on the French Revolution and Napoleon. And before that time, there was a general understanding that people did things. Kings ruled nations, kings built nations, men ran the world. And then we got to the point where too many people got angry due to too many problems. We're going to be very broad here. And we started thinking that ideologies, concepts, ideals, pieces of paper, that is what ran the world. Like the collective values run the world, but not the people actually enforcing them. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. The world just doesn't work.
Honestly, that's what's been distressing as I observe my countrymen in regards to politics. Something I'm going a little bit of Triarch lore here. I used to believe when I was still a constitutionalist that whenever we talked about what the Constitution can and cannot do, I used to believe it was under the implicit, unspoken understanding that when Americans talk about it, we are always referring to how it is protected by the people in power. No, turns out most Americans unironically believe that the Constitution is a sentient document with literal magic superpowers that doesn't need human enforcement or intervention at all.
Again,
Tell me I'm wrong.
they worship a false idol. That's what they're doing by saying the Constitution is this magical document that that just does everything for us. It's like, okay, by that logic,
Why
People
hasn't it?
said that they'd at least be honest, but no, they don't even recognize that their way of thinking is magical. They just think it is, therefore it does. Their thought process don't go much further than that.
It's ideology. That's how it works. You start thinking this is how the things must be, and once belief starts getting in the way, that's it. Then it's over. And they cannot think outside the box, not because they cannot think, but because to them the box is comforting. If you see what I mean.
And to the Christians, to the Christians who basically treat the state as their god, you know, you should read the Bible sometime. You really should, and see what happens when people start worshiping false idols.
And the thing with the Constitution, if it was magical, I think it would probably have dealt with a lot of issues by now.
Yes.
I think the most obvious one we can point out is one thing Americans like to point out: the Second Amendment. And if you read the amendment carefully, the last part is "shall not be infringed," which basically means no restrictions.
How many restrictions are there on it?
More than there ever
Boatloads.
should be. Because I should be able to buy a jet if I wanted to, but I can't.
Well, I mean, I can transform into a 747 as well as a houseboat, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the person who plays the orange online can.
Sorry, Scurvy, you're illegal.
Yeah,
You better
yeah.
turn yourself in.
Go
Well,
to
I
the
mean,
It's over.
Then again, I am the king of my own county, so yeah.
Oh, well then prepare for war.
Well,
Prepare
good
for
luck with
war.
good luck with that. I'm thinking of win quotes against the U.S. government. Oh, I said too much.
Oh, here's a better question. Do you have oil, Scurvy?
No, we have stuff that is far better than oil because my kind are vastly more technologically advanced than humanity ever will be. It pays to be at least sixth dimensional beings, but I am an 11th one.
All right. To kind of get back on topic, though,
Yes,
I do
yes.
want to clarify that I don't mean to direct this criticism directly, or rather solely, at Americans. Well, first of all, I'm one myself. So, with that, there should be an implicit understanding that I wouldn't be espousing this criticism if I didn't at least care somewhat for my nation. Emphasis on the somewhat. But this can also be applied to people all across the world who are the very least intelligent enough to recognize laws and the value in them, but aren't smart enough to understand that the laws, well, they do in fact require people to protect and uphold them.
Yep.
Yeah, speaking as an American as well, considering this recent development, I've hit the not just screw the government, but screw this country as well. So, call me the odd one out.
We're
If
getting
only there was a
violent.
place for me to like actually move to. Everywhere else fucking sucks too.
Oh,
Yeah,
either sucks or it's too far
that's
away.
the immediate. That's the goal. I keep repeating this, but keep saying it in slightly different ways every day. But the current imperial policy is that they want to have Chinese level state control, but they want to put the Congolese population around us and have Congolese level of security. And they want us to pay for both down to the last penny until we're completely poor.
I mean, honestly, I think at this point I'd rather go live in China with all the horrible, downsides to it.
At this
Basically,
point, frankly, a lot do.
What we're living right now was always going to be the end point of the liberal world order. When you basically make tabula rasa your god, it is inevitable that things are going to go to shit because it is such a denial of basic fucking reality.
Absolutely. And this is kind of in line with what I was saying earlier with, men make the world, not principles. Is that the reason as to why everything turned into like tabula rasa, as you say, is every man is flawed and the principles, the ideals, they are flawless, they are perfect. Well, no. You try to make the world perfect, you're just going to end up destroying everything because nothing will ever be perfect enough. And that's exactly what's happening. Like I don't know if I want to like throw the subject in, but one of the ways in which they saw betterment of society was in feminizing it. Great. Now they've pushed it all the way to the trans insanity. They've pushed it all the way to men no longer being men because that's a little too dirty, that's not acceptable. Well, it was always going to end this way, one way or another. Here we are.
Yep.
That's actually one of the reasons we have
inevitable.
this podcast. I don't know if the rest of you guys who haven't, gosh, what am I thinking of? Oh, Carol, I know you weren't here for the past few councils for a while, but we actually had a discussion with Archaeosophy here about, well, for one, we addressed the question of national divorce, which I'm still advocating for, hashtag Balkanize America. But one of the reasons that we have these discussions is to gather like-minded individuals and to come up with ideas or strategies, or at the very least explore concepts to help us better understand the predicament we are increasingly going into, and then what to do from there. Because, my opinion, I don't think the United States as a government has any more time to function past 2033.
Why that year specifically?
Nothing very substantial, more so just a hunch.
Yeah. It's funny, I have this strange theory that every decade starts on a 7 and ends on a 3. As in, the 80s started in 1977 and ended in 1993. That would mean that this decade is the one of the total dissolution of the US state. Are we witnessing it?
It sure as hell seems like it.
Well, I was just about to say that some of you guys might think we're bound for outright collapse sooner. Though I don't think the collapse will be instant. I think it'll be, as it's always been, very, very gradual. You'll have one institution following after another and so forth.
Yes.
So slow and grueling.
No,
Like Weimar.
It's like okay, so another economical subject, but I thought we would get to it at some point, might as well now. The real weakness right now of the US is your bond market, which I know no one likes to hear about, but it's important. The bond market is essentially just people buying US debt. And because Trump has been, Trump, things are not looking too good and they're not going to get any better. At some point, I think this year, the US is supposed to roll over something like 800 billion of debt. So alongside however too much you'll want to spend, you also have almost $1 trillion that you already have to roll over to pay again, essentially. And I'm not going to say you won't be able to, because I think you'll be able to, but as the news tightens, it's going to become more obvious that certain actions will be taken by the US government under basically desperation. And I don't think Venezuela was like out of desperation, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you had Iran under desperation or something of that sort, try to pluck up the oil market in whatever way works for you. And depending on just how needy you might be in terms of money, because yes, the US government can always print, but printing money creates massive amounts of inflation, and the bond market is here to prevent that. Well, the bond market is no longer sufficient already. This is going to possibly show certain things. I don't have like a specific example, but I am expecting that crazy things will be done, very broadly speaking, to try and push up the bond market at any cost. We're going to see that either this year or next year have very severe consequences. And that's how I really see the collapse happening for the American empire. It's one, you will no longer be able to pay for all the stuff you're supposed to pay. Like some things, people will just not play ball anymore because they won't be able to make their money back, and they're going to say, no. Like, you got to get me something better. And I suspect that crazy decisions, things like attacking Iran or whatever else, crazy decisions will be made to try and placate the problem temporarily, but it's going to work out like a debt. Like, what's a good example? Actually, debt is not a great example. Let's put it this way. Try to imagine that you're like drinking seawater. Like you're thirsty, you're in the middle of the sea, you're drinking seawater, and you drink the seawater and you're like, my thirst is quenched. Yeah, but the salt in your body is going to make your thirst 10 times worse. It's just going to take an hour to get there. So after an hour, you're way more thirsty. You drink even more salt water. This time it's just going to be 45 minutes before you feel the thirst. Then it's going to be 30 minutes. Then it's going to be 20, and then you're dead. I'm suspecting that we're going to see increasing levels of government pressure to try and get the bond market in order, to try and make money any way possible. And very broadly speaking, I think a lot of doors are going to close. I mean, the Chinese doors are closed, but even beyond that, it's going to be increasing levels of demand from the US government, with people that will increasingly look at them like the bad party, the guy you don't want to lend money to. And whatever desperate acts will start showing up there will probably define how things go down. Like if it's just, okay, no one wants to lend us money anymore, this is getting really tense, we're just going to have to cut something, we're going to have to give up on something, which will still trigger the collapse. Like it's happening either way. But there's going to be the option, we're going to cut something for real, like what Doge was trying to do, but they got kicked out. We're going to cut something for real this time. Or it's going to be, just, power through. Just declare wars, just go hard, just do whatever. I don't care, we'll manage. And I don't know yet how it will happen, but however, the first, let's say we're going to need to see a moment where they just kind of give up. They just kind of go, hey, we can no longer sustain this and we need to chill. That will be like the good way out. That will be like the soft collapse. The non-soft collapse being something like, let's just declare war on China, man. We can still do this kind of move. Wait and see what happens. But with Trump in power and him having essentially every asshole in the deep state manipulating him at this point, congratulations, by the way. Like, I didn't think he would fall this fast. It's kind of shocking how it lasted. Like, the MAGA plan lasted like, 3 months? And then it was like, Venezuela, Iran, Israel, Palestine, this. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But basically, you're suggesting that if as Okaro more or less worded it out in our group chat here, one domino collapses the system. So if one
Yes.
thing goes wrong enough, the whole thing could fall rapidly.
Yes, but it also you got to understand that currently think of it as a system of pressure. Like the US is under economic pressure to keep remaining the superpower that it is. And every extra bit of pressure, think of it like a balloon that's already been like blown to basically the max. And anyone that gives it like the lightest tap or something, it's an ever higher risk of the thing just popping. And when it pops, like it's gonna deflate very fast. That's what's going to happen. And again, even just with the AI bubble, it's going to go down bad. So imagine with all of the rest of the problem.
Yeah. Hey, Okaro, is there an example you want to elaborate on?
Okay, so what I was talking about in the chat with the Empire's Core book series is that in the book, there's the Empire. It honestly, I would say, looks like the equivalent to the US today, except kind of put up to 10 or 100 times worse. Think of, instead of just one nation with a bunch of welfare, it's like trillions of people on Earth on welfare under the imperial system. And the Emperor can't do anything because there's a council who has already taken all the power from him. And the council's not going to fix anything because, like our current system, everyone in power's not going to just relinquish it. So what they do is they just keep it on running for as long as they can. And what happened in the book is one of the like algae plants that helped create food for people on the welfare system got contaminated because we have to meet the quota to meet this welfare thing. It got contaminated. The food that was pushed out started, ended up getting people sick. They ended up dead. And that was the trigger that ended up collapsing the Empire in that series because the capital planet kind of had a lot of gang problems underneath the surface. And once that started to happen, it wasn't pretty. And that's kind of how I see the US going right now is that, yeah, we've built up all these systems to help people, bring other people in, which to give the equivalent is we have a big welfare system. We're never going to kill it. We might add a few restrictions, but ultimately more and more people are going to go on it. And we're also inviting, I guess, the invaders or the gangs from other countries over into the US to use them for labor and so on. But sooner or later, one system is going to snap, likely end up killing some people, and then it's going to blow up.
Actually, you made me think of one thing that's actually a really good example. All those blacks that you have in the US that basically live on EBT. Imagine if you said something like, okay, we can no longer pay for all of this, so we're cutting EBT by 25%, and then crime goes up like 300%.
Yeah, that
And
would.
then you're like, we need to stop this, but there is no way to stop it. You can't pay for it anymore. You also can't tolerate this kind of crime. And you just kind of quietly tell the cops, just start blasting, just start killing them. And that creates, the murders that come out, create proper riots. Like, you can have a construct that looks sane, but if its fundamentals are actually on a timer or are under too much pressure for what it can sustain, once it blows up, yeah, domino theory is the domino pattern, anyways, probably the best way to describe it.
You're thinking
You
of
can't
US
tell me-
aid and Scarf, if I may, real quick.
Sure, before my joke.
Yes, please. I was actually thinking of the whole US aid debacle when Doge was in place, how it started cutting expenses from that, and just how quickly we started seeing reports of women in Africa not being able to get what was it? I don't know, some kind of treatment to deal with. I don't remember what it's called. There's too many sexually transmitted diseases for me to care to know about. But the point is, they could get treatment for infections after being SA'd. I realize that's a bit of a That's not normally how I would phrase it, but we are on YouTube, so gotta be careful with that. The point is, once USAID money started getting cut, we started seeing people, really the libtards, try to guilt trip everyone else about how all these things are happening. Like we have more children starving before, uh, or rather after USAID started getting withdrawn, but it never, while USAID was in place, it never addressed any of the core issues that it was claiming to try to help with. It was only addressing the surface problems. And so when it got withdrawn to any measure, because they never got to the root of those problems kicked back up again.
I would say it just
Well,
went back to normal.
the thing is,
that's a way to
USAID
put it.
is. It's funny that you threw that, but USAID is actually the CIA, and it's essentially the CIA's public bank. So the way it works is it goes into a country, pretends to help, doesn't actually fix anything, but it puts them on something like, well, as you said, like medicine against whatever STDs. You never fix the original problem, but you make sure that the problem is livable. And in exchange for making problems livable, sometimes they create problems to make sure that there are problems to fix, they get political kickbacks, which in the case of most African countries is different levels of, oh, I want this mine, I want this resource, I want this port, I want this, I want that. So there's a lot to. So this is not specifically about the USA, it's more like a general rule, but there's a lot to old empires where you've been pushing money, you've been pushing funds, you've been pushing tremendous amounts of things in every money hole that you could find in the world. And when it's going to start tumbling, we're going to find out, yeah, a lot of things that were running only because public money or some special government stuff was going. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that past whatever USAID itself was, there's going to be a lot of ways that will not be foreseeable that will define the collapse. Like, there's no good example of how certain things will happen, but they will happen and no one will understand why that failed, while this company failed, while this city went down under, why everything fell apart. It's going to be a strange thing to watch, but I expect, as you said, it's going to take a bit. But personally, I'm really thinking there's going to be, like, I think it's going to happen in like 5-6 years. It's pretty realistic, I think, at this rate. They could kick Trump out and stop his madness. It's just, at this point, I think they're all in for it, despite all the pretenses.
Well, that kind of brings us back to the concept of secret combinations.
Mhm.
I don't think we're really ever going to know the full extent of all this corruption, really until it gets shown into the light for what it is.
Nope. Definitely not happening.
Okay, Scurvy, you can make a joke now.
Yeah, I already kind of made it in the chat. Trying to
Also,
take my
anyway.
joke like you was trying to take my EBT.
Pretty
So
much.
you tell me I can't get shit ton of Popeyes. You can't tell me what to spend my EBT money on. Shit, I think we's gonna start a riot.
But ironically, burn down the Popeyes.
Yeah, we's gonna burn down the Popeyes for not giving me they chicken.
I guess on the subject that I briefly mentioned, the predictions for 2026, I more or less made mine already. If you guys want to make some of your owns. Why did I say that as plural? It's singular. Anyway, feel free to use whatever chaos has been happening recently to make your predictions.
I'll let everyone else go first.
Let's
Think of-
see.
Said most when I talked about, all the economic crises that are coming. So I think that was that for me.
Yeah, in regards to, I know like jack shit about economics, but I do know quite a bit about like all the social issues that are about to. It's like the analogy of the balloon. They're all about to pop. I see this. I saw this coming years ago. and all the social issues that we're facing are really gonna be just they're I think a lot of them are about to end because of the economic stuff. I don't think people are going to be worrying about, the whole trans rights nonsense because it's like, well, one, you have no money, and good luck trying to find and good luck trying to get food because of how expensive it's going to be. All that madness is going to be going. All that madness is going to be going away when hard times starts really hitting us. Nobody's thinking about funding someone's transgender surgery. What they're thinking about is having a place to stay and keeping their bellies full.
Why is my money going to all these Somali care centers?
Yes, that too. That too.
See?
The fraud can only go on for so. The fraud can also only go on for so long.
Really?
I'd say before the peasants, if we're even capable of revolting at this point, revolt, and that is a genuine thing too. It's like, how bad is the testosterone shortage? And what I mean by that, it's like, just the fact that so many guys my age their testosterone is starting to get to the point of their grandfathers.
Oh,
It's getting bad. It's getting really bad. And testosterone is the hormone that actually is, pretty important in starting revolts. It's drive. It's synonyms like that. And like what you mentioned, Okairo, my Second Amendment will revolt, but they never do. And there's been so many fucking things people could have just brought their, done a revolt. We'll put it at that. This is on YouTube. It's not my own channel either. There's so many instances that revolts could have started, but I think they didn't happen sooner because testosterone levels have been going down the drain, and people are just way too comfortable with just letting this broken fucking system just keep getting worse. They want to maintain a semblance of order, and a lot of the bullshit that's been going on for decades they view as order, which it is not. Under any sane country, it is not.
Well, Scurvy, we just have to vote people out and vote new people in. That'll magically fix the problem.
Yeah. We gotta vote. We gotta vote. Like we gotta be like the Canaanites when they sacrifice children. We just gotta vote harder, everyone. We just gotta sacrifice more. It's very similar rhetoric, if you ask me. It's like that we are not voting our way out of this. We are not.
Anything you want to add?
I suppose
Just one thing for myself, just because I hear them too. There's no Second Amendment here in France, but like I hear them too, and I always keep thinking the exact same thing, which is the people that worship the Second Amendment, like, I got guns that'll protect me, sure, but you do realize that you'll never have like the guns to fight a state, and I don't mean like firepower. I mean you could have 20 guys with crappy pistols that would do a really good job, or you could have a guy with a freaking Metal Gear and he wouldn't do much, because after a while, almost any action of importance is about organization. Like, when you get to the army, the first thing they do is make sure that you understand who the sergeant is. It's the guy that's screaming at you. It's not teaching you how to shoot, because order and organization is what makes an army function or not. It's a small thing, but like, every single time I hear of the Second Amendment people, they essentially go, as long as they've got the firepower, you can theoretically shoot. Yeah, that's nice. It's good to have. I'm not saying you should have that amendment. Please have it. Use it. Make great use of it. I wish I could have guns too. But the reality is, no, you're not going to take down your damn states.
I actually got into an argument with someone about this just last year, and he was insisting that because people had the Second Amendment here in the United States, that they had the the means to overthrow the government necessary. And what I was trying to point out is it's not about the arms that we possess, it's about the will to act. Yeah, sure, you can own a whole bunch of guns, but are you going to use them? As a matter of fact, as Okairo shared here, numbers, organization, and logistics. Yes, those are all good things to consider. Do you have it in you, or do we, the people, quote unquote, have it in us to form counter elites? And right now, I don't think we do.
And key thing to remember, I don't remember the name, but I'm sure someone will recognize it. There was this bunch of people that started living in a sort of semi-autonomous group in the 90s that the FBI went in and basically killed them all.
Waco.
Nobody... Sorry?
I know which one you're talking about because there's been a few things, so I think it's what is it, the Waco compound?
Yeah, it's got to be them. It's the compound, a Mako compound. So I think there was a little less than 100 people in it, and they were already effectively armed and independent, quote unquote, politically. Like they lived in their own community, and just at 100 people of organization, the FBI just killed them all. And a lot of people don't understand why they did it. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I don't know the specifics. But they definitely did not somehow panicked a bit and killed almost all of them just like that. Like there was a clear desire to crush them. And I think that even at just less than 100 people, the government is already willing to send in its police to basically kill everyone that is independent and armed. Like, as you said, it's about will. If you express your will publicly, meaning you say something even in a hidden way, something that sounds like, I think we should band together and start organizing ourselves to overthrow the government. Yeah, that's it. The FBI will be in your house, in your ass, very quick. That's the reality.
It's also a good reason why both Archaeosophy and I are actually against the idea of rebelling.
Mm.
Now, our approach is use what we can at our disposal, what we have it, to start forming these intentional communities that we can all fall back on once things do collapse.
Yeah, that is the best approach. Absolutely.
I mean, I agree. That's what I'm doing with my security business, is to use that to get resources, money, and then form a community.
Perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. You need a group to fall back on. It's the loners that die. I will die, sadly.
I guess for me, I'd have the Orthodox Church to fall back on,
All
or
right,
at least
you're
my
into that.
local church community.
Mhm.
So there's that. Only problem is there's not too many young people around, like 18 to 25.
Yeah.
And that's I'm like one of the few young people that are there. There's like a few other people around my age, but that's like the biggest. And chances are, if things were to really go bad, it would be us that would probably have to do the brunt work of
Yeah.
just keeping everything going. And I don't mind. I wouldn't mind keeping the community strong. I think that's a noble. I think that's a noble thing to do. It's just I pray that I'll be able to rise up to the occasion.
Mm. We need more children, but that's the
Yes.
fundamental problem everywhere right now.
Except for third world countries, for some reason.
Yeah, they need less, but they literally have no reason not to produce it. Like whatever happens, they'll be given food anyway.
Yeah, we throw food, we throw money, we throw everything at the third world, so they really have no reason to stop breeding.
Yep. And the work we put in to give it to them is work that means that we are too busy to have many children.
Yep.
That is literally the insanity of our time.
So I've noticed something. I remember listening to a What If Alt Hiss video a while back, and he's mentioned a few times before that the median age of marriage is actually an indicator of when a revolutionary event is going to occur. And in France before the French Revolution, the median age of marriage was 28. Let's see. I'm just gonna do a little digging here. average age for first marriage in U.S. By state. So that's going to be, granted, the data is going to be, oh my goodness, 32. And the youngest in Utah is 25. My goodness, the fact that the numbers are in like the 30s and the high 20s, it's like
We're very complacent.
something, it tells me that something is about to happen. And we also need, and
God.
something is about to happen, and I'm usually the one who jokes, nothing ever happens, but we're inching closer and closer and closer. And because all the other things surrounding the date, like the dating crisis as well, which thanks women, you ruined that for us. With all the issues surrounding that, it's just like, well, what's the point of participating in a society that is literally collapsing at its seams when it's only Aura that's basically propping it up right now for all the dumbass masses? It's just like, I worry for the future, man. I really do.
Yeah, we also. But at least things are going to break, and that's when we'll be able to do something. Like, I don't want to plug my book again. I've talked about it enough earlier, but the chapter, the before the very last chapter, is called Mall of the Boomers. And it's about the subprime crisis, where I explain that since, well, I don't explain all of that, but I've explained throughout the book the evolution of the US economy and all the basic depth of the US economy. And in 2008, I explained that it's over. That, like, however the US has started evolving since the early 70s, that road is shut. Like, it's over. And everything since 2008 is essentially just the system pretending that it's still alive it's pretending that it's still alive. It's pretending that, like, the blood is still flowing, basically by sacrificing the young in the name of preserving the old, which is where it gets the title, Mall of the Boomers. That sentiment that everything is just shutting down and stopping, and that the only ones that are still feeling like content enough with it are like the 70-year-olds. That is not a sentiment. That is a fact. We're literally killing the 17-year-olds to save the 70-year-olds at this point. And yeah, something will crack hard in the next years. Like, even ignoring any economic crisis, like, just the boomers will die. Things will change no matter what now.
Kronos and his children. That's the myth that comes to mind.
Yep.
I understand most interpretations of that is very little, but if we consider these are the kinds of stories that originate in ancient Greece, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that the inception of these myths correlated with this specific time, but wasn't the first republic in Greece?
It was in the first democracy was Athens. The first I can think of, it's a subtle difference. The first republic I can think of is Rome, but, well, close enough.
Well, I was kind of using republic and democracy interchangeably there, because the differences, as Ark himself has pointed out, are very minimal.
Yeah, today it is. Back then it was different. It was a pretty big difference. Just saying, like, it's just me geeking out, but, like, there was a pretty massive difference between the two. Because, fuck it, I'm not going to bother everyone with the details of the Athenian democracy. Who cares? No. Never mind.
It could be relevant.
No, it's not relevant to what you're saying, so just ignore me. Just like, no, you see, the Demos Kratos is not the same thing as the Respublica. Actually, it's close.
Oh, you mean the pedantry of what each, I dare say, branch of that government did.
Yes, and it's more like the real thing is Rome properly considered that it was a national project, as in it was about spreading Rome. Athens was more of a, we're all going to convene together to make sure that we stay very powerful, but there was nothing to sell. Like, it's again, I don't want to waste everyone's time with it, but just Rome properly wanted to be a civilization, Athens wanted to make money, which is why I always make that kind of difference between the two. Because I've had that interesting argument made before that some people say, I'm for the republic, but I'm not for democracy. I am for neither. I'm a monarchist. I want kings. I want men. I don't want principles. But I have to say the general argument of Respublika has its own meaning, and the general vision of democracy has its other meaning, because the Respublika argument is politics affects everyone, so everyone should be able to have a hand in politics. That's essentially why it's called the res publica, literally the public thing in Latin, and became republic eventually. And that concept makes sense in its own way, but as I'm sure you know, all it eventually creates is a bunch of people that don't really give a fuck, that give their opinion about politics, but will never actually research the effects of their policies. And, well, it ends up in what it is today, what you call the sorts of eventually a republic only becomes a democracy because the point of the republic was to put politics in the hands of everyone, and the point of the democracy was to get people to vote to a majority. And over time, eventually, the two concepts completely conflated. Well, then again, well, whatever. I'm not going to go there. Just there is an argument for the republic that I can hear. I just think it ultimately will lead to democracy. I mean, the American Republic originally had a lot of pretty stringent, somewhat stringent, let's say, restrictions on voting. You needed to be an owner, you needed to have a certain revenue. Not everybody voted in the early American Republic. And some of the founding fathers were pretty damn against becoming a democracy. And it happened. It always happens eventually. It always comes down this way, so you're right.
It's inevitable. I'd argue
Yeah.
it's inevitable.
Yeah, I agree.
Have you heard the phrase masculine republics lead to feminine democracies?
No, but do tell me.
It's a very, I'd say it's a very interesting phrase, because you have the people who established the republic, the people who have fought and have put, blood, sweat, and tears into founding it. That generation is arguably the strongest leadership that that a republic can have. And then as the years go on, people tend to forget the lessons that their forefathers teach them, and things start becoming more progressive over time, in regards to like policy or whatnot. Certain arguments are bound to pop up. It's kind of, it mirrors basically all republics, if you ask me. Rome, Weimar, I said that earlier, but I'll say it again because it's so painfully relevant. Weimar, and now America. It's like we start seeing this cycle of people who are getting into power that they should not be getting into. They start fucking everything up, and it just, through generations of this, it just turns into like this uber feminine democracy where it's like, oh, everyone's voice matters. Yeah, we could change the world if we just vote hard enough.
Back
And
in the
just a
kitchen.
bunch of other, and just a bunch of other feminine nonsense and attitudes that corrupt the population and will inevitably destroy the country.
Well, the thing is, one, that also happens in non-republics, like governments growing weak, kings being replaced by softer princes, or a generally corrupt class. That happens, sadly, a little bit everywhere to a degree. And I gotta say, you triggered my autism because you mentioned Rome and Weimar. Okay, Weimar is kind of a special case because a lot of people don't know this, but since people these days think Hitler was like this swell guy that was amazing and saved the Germans, and I'm just going to throw that out there. The people that built the Weimar institutions were essentially the pretty much forbidden political opposition, as in the socialists and the far leftists of Germany, that had been kept out of any kind of political power in the old regime. It was basically the most leftist institutions that they could have made. It was the most leftist constitution in the world in like 1920, much more than like the American Constitution or any other one. And I like to say that thing was doomed from the start. Like, go as left as you can. Yep, that's dead on arrival. That's dead on start. And as for Rome, look, Rome had all the way to its very last days people like Cicero and Rome. That's the key things a lot of people forget. When Caesar gets assassinated at the very, very end of the Republic, he gets assassinated because basically the hardcore Republicans, the people that wanted the Republic to go on at all costs, literally all band together to kill him because he's becoming a dictator for life. He's becoming like Lord forever. So Rome doesn't count. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. It's like, I'm thinking of like Rome as a non... It's ironic too, twice, because as the Republic, the Romans were very used to fighting each other. And it's under the Empire, ironically, that at first there was minor conflicts, let's say. But over time, the Roman emperors grew very corrupt because they basically sanctified the emperor. They made him somebody untouchable. They made him somebody that could never be criticized or fought. And that's not what brought Rome down or anything. It's different stories. But I'm just musing. Like, I don't think that republics being about people fighting is necessarily problematic. But I think, as you said, the fundamental conundrum is that on the one hand, every republic will eventually turn into a democracy to a degree or another. And on the other hand, I really can't help but think that if you want a country to be led somewhat well, you need elites to lead it, like not the people. And more importantly, you need elites that are challenged. They don't need to be like, you don't need like a revolution every 5 minutes to keep them on their toes. But it can't be just people that go soft and think, this is good enough. Nah. If you want to rule, you need to behave like a ruler. Is my motto in this case. Just musing out loud, sorry.
I don't think we got around to Okawa's predictions, if you want to make any.
Well, my predictions are similar to Scurvy's and my boys, and I guess even yours. Though I guess the main difference is that I see, probably since the US just did their thing with Maduro, that China, Russia, probably some other countries are all gonna put their foot in the water and go, we're gonna try something just to see if we can get away with it too.
Yeah. I'd like to elaborate on my prediction a bit. Do bearing in mind that this is just going for 2026. I actually think we're going to see a lot more fracturing. Have any of you guys heard the phrase right-wing civil war going around?
I
Tim
have.
Pool? Were you talking about Tim Pool?
Not specifically, no.
He
mean
always
about
says civil
MAGA
war.
in
but-
general?
Just anyone who proclaims themselves right-wing. So you have MAGA, the dissident right, the noticing community. We are going to see a lot more fracturing, even just beyond fracturing beyond just that. It already was kind of at
Yeah.
ahead, just before the new year, but ever since this incident with Maduro, I mean, we already see it. I don't know about you guys, but I see on my timeline people who normally agree pretty much in line with each other going against each other outright just because of how drastic their opinions are. From you have the people go in full support of just whatever Trump does. That's one end, and on the far end, you have those who clearly see what's going on for what it is. No, this is not beneficial to the American people or to the West at large.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know
Figures.
if you want us to comment on it, but like the general, like it's been a month and a half maybe now. There was a magic spell, I almost want to say, like Trump can do no wrong, that lasted about 6 months for most. It's definitely broken. The veil is broken pretty awful. Yeah.
Well, just to kind of share with the audience what Okayo just shared in the group chat here. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro trial will be presented over by Jewish Zionist Judge Alvin Hellerstein, who also oversaw most 9/11 civil lawsuits.
Isn't that funny?
Great.
Great. We all know how that trial's gonna go.
Oh, and I think
Guilty.
we found a good note to end on as well. Really, it's a bad note, but does that not just punctuate the point so succinctly?
Well, we can go over something I just found too, if you'd like.
What'd you find? Justin, U.S. president says, oh,
Would you like a vacation
he's actually
spot?
going to try and do something in Greenland. Fascinating.
Yeah, so Kyle mentioned earlier wanting the whole thing to burn down. I've held that position for nearly a year, and I've never felt more strongly about it.
Yes. Well,
Man,
he's
me
helping
too.
us very much.
Yeah.
Especially since,
I
like,
too am.
Be careful, my boy. They'll start saying it's 5D chess.
Yeah, they will. I unfortunately I'm a master at like 20D chess, and it's a very shitty play. That's all I'm saying. No, but like
man,
the amazing thing is, just saying, okay, Greenland is like owned by Denmark. It's I don't want to be mean, but it's not a very significant military power, and the US already has a military base on Greenland, meaning all he needs to do is say, I'd like 3 more bases and I'll pay for it, and that's that. He basically already has control of Greenland because Denmark's never going to say no. This is just pride. This is just, I want to be known as Trump the Conqueror, and that's it. There's nothing else. It's ridiculous.
Basically, it'll be just as fake as the invasion of Venezuela.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's like, what? Why Greenland? Like, you literally can just set American corporations there. You can sit as many American bases as you want. It's just, I cannot see any other reason than just, I want to do it because I want people to say, I took all the stuff that no one else did there. Like, it's just pride.
If he wants to annex Greenland, I'm okay with it. That'll be the first place I move.
Yeah, well, we might. I know you're kind of half joking there, but we might have to consider options like that if things.
Oh no, I'm not joking.
Oh, okay, cool.
If he
You're gonna
annexes
have a
it,
security company with the seals.
Here,
Let's
I'll
go.
tell you what, Kyle. If things don't work out for me in Utah, I'll join you.
yay.
That's
Honestly,
gonna be a serious weather change.
Yeah, honestly, I too am of the stance of just fucking hell. Let the empire die. Let us, the people, I guess, pick up the pieces, and hopefully, God willing, we'll actually find somebody who actually wants to be a good king.
Hopefully. But yes. Freaking Greenland again. Oh my.
But as I said earlier, I think that's becoming, a little bit fruitless. So we're probably going to be going through quite the lengthy societal collapse. I don't think it's going to be like, just like Mad Max, but it's going to be slow, arduous, and gay, very gay.
Or as my boy pointed out, it could be rapid if the right or wrong pieces collapse. We don't really know is the point. The whole point of us even making this predictions, it's really just, at least for me, it's part of the fun of the game. At least that's how I like to view it, because that's what politics in general has become. It's theater. So if you're not seriously looking for solutions, I'm left to conclude that you're just a performer.
Yep.
And if that's the case, I'm here for the lulls. Alrighty. Before we close out, I don't remember if I mentioned it at the beginning of today's stream, but we will be pushing the authoritarianism versus totalitarianism discussion to next week. And Archaeosophy, our producer, will be joining us for that. I will also try to work with Keza and White Supremacy to see if we can get either of them on for that. Provided provided we find a time that works for them. Oh boy. You know what? My boy, you're in Europe. Do you want to read that last bit of nugget of information Okara shared?
Let's see. In the fog of Maduro's kidnapping. Oh, come on, it's pretty clear. Trump massively deploys weapons to Europe for war on Iran. Oh, yeah. Multiple C-17s-A, along with KC-135 Stratotankers, have flown over to the Atlantic from the United States to various bases in Europe. One interesting detail is that one of the C-17As departed from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, SOAR, the Night Stalkers, which was founded directly after the failed U.S. rescue operation in Iran in 1980. Man, talk about a grudge. It's like 45 years. Specializing in Delta Force operations and were likely involved in the kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. At least 2 of the C-17s have landed at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Yeah. Bibi visited, Bibi requested, they got rid of Venezuela, and now they're going for the big guy. Does everyone remember that right after that little stupid bombing in Iran last year, they were like, that's it, no war, it ends there? Or am I the only one?
No, you're not, and I think we're going to see more of that. All right, say goodbyes, everyone. Be sure to tune in next time.
Thank you for inviting me.
And tune in next time, fellas.
Yeah. I'll assume he's hit the off button by now.